We got some big injury updates on Jaire Alexander, DeAndre Hopkins, Emery Jones Jr., Adisa Isaac. We're going to go through all the updates from today. We're also going to discuss Joe Flacco officially starting for the Browns and having a homecoming in Week 2 in Baltimore. And we hear from John Harbaugh and Randy Brown. All that and more in today's episode of the Flock Rundown.
Ravens Flock. Flock Rundown is the place to be.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.
What's up, Ravens fans? My name is Ryan, and welcome back to another episode of the Flock Rundown. Training camp is winding down. The preseason is winding down. We are getting closer and closer to the regular season. We did get a ton of injury updates today, so let's dive into that. We'll start with who was not at practice today, and that was Pat Ricard, DeAndre Hopkins, Dayton Wade, Isaiah Likely, Emery Jones Jr., Kyle Van Noy, Adisa Isaac, William Kwenku, Jaire Alexander, Jalen Armour-Davis, Chidobe Awuzie. So a ton of guys were out today. A lot of load management, though. John Harbaugh spoke to the media and said that most of these injuries aren't serious and they would all be ready to play in Week 1. The guys who would not be ready to play in Week 1 and who will not be ready in Week 1 is Emery Jones Jr., who the doctors still haven't cleared, so he will not be ready for the start of the season.
Disappointing. He's not going to make it to the start of the regular season. I would say the doctor, the surgeon, best I can tell you is, he wants to be sure that it's fully right, and that's the way it should be. We respect that. And so it's going to take a little longer, so we won't be counting on him early on in the season.
There is some details to that because he's on the non-football injury list, so he's not going to count against the roster. He will not be on the 53 because he's on the non-football injury list. If you're on the non-football injury list when the season starts, after the roster cuts, you are automatically out the first 4 games, and then the team can activate you whenever. But as long as you're on that non-football injury list, you don't count against the roster. So Emery Jones Jr. is not making the 53, but will then be activated later on most likely. So count on Emery Jones Jr. at least being out a month into the season, and it is going to be a true red shirt year for him. I don't see Emery Jones Jr. being heavily involved unless he's just unbelievable and comes back and is just, really earning some time in practice. But I can't see it. I don't think we're going to see much of Emery Jones Jr. at all this year. And also Adisa Isaac. John Harbaugh said that his elbow injury did have some ligament tears. He does need surgery, and it's not season ending, but they aren't expecting him back until at least midway through the regular season. So he is an IR candidate for sure.
There was some ligament damage in there with the dislocated elbow. If it had been a dislocated elbow clean, it would have been about 3 weeks. Since it's not, it's going to have to undergo surgery. It's not a season ender, though. Maybe midway in the season sometime, he'll have a chance to come back.
So that's another guy that is not going to count towards this initial 53-man roster. So some spots are opening up, some spots for some guys to earn on Saturday. Saturday is going to be mainly the bubble guys and just young guys that aren't going to make the team. You're not going to see anybody really important that is solidified their spot out there on Saturday. And it'll be really telling who does play on Saturday. We'll talk about that game a little bit later in the week, but it's very telling who's going to play, because if there's a bubble guy that we think's a bubble guy, let's say Ruben Lowry, for example, and then he doesn't suit up on Saturday, he made the team, So you will see some of those probably that we're kind of debating. Maybe a David Ajabo now with this Adisa Isaac injury. Maybe he doesn't even play Saturday, and we know he makes the team. I don't know. I still think those guys will probably be out there. I'm just giving some minor examples. Saturday is a big telling day early on who's going to make the team, who's not. And then there's obviously a lot of guys that could earn their spot Saturday. And with a few of these guys not being ready for Week 1, Emery Jones Jr., Adisa Isaac, maybe Isaiah Likely gets put on IR and is out for 4 weeks. I could definitely see that happening. There's a lot of other roster spots opening. I think that really cements guys like Ruben Lowry, Corey Bullock at center/guard. I think he makes the team. I think Jay Higgins has a great shot to make the team. There's a lot of guys that we'll be watching on Saturday, but it opens up a ton of different opportunities for those guys. And I think some of those guys we might not have thought were going to make it, a month ago. Now that there's all these injuries that are cleared up and we know who's not going to be on the initial 53, it does open some more spots up. Another one of those guys that's really fighting for a spot and had a great week 2 showing against the Cowboys is Keyon Martin. John Harbaugh spoke about him today, said his personality is infectious and he's really making a run at this thing.
Keyon, first thing is I think his personality, man. It's this infectious personality. Always smiling. He's always energetic. He's always ready to roll. One day, one of the very first days, because he was kind of a trial guy, and he's fighting for his life from the first day. He's had to fight for his life, like a lot of guys do every day. And I saw him early in the morning. One morning, he kind of had this look on his face, like he was tired and kind of like that, kind of grumpy. I'm like, why are you grumpy? I mean, you're in the National Football League. I mean, 3 days ago, where were you? Here you are. You'd be walking around here with a smile on your face and a bounce in your step, buddy. And he started laughing, and that's how he's been. I mean, he was that way. I think it was probably just early. I don't know. Maybe he hadn't had breakfast yet. But he's brought that kind of personality to the field. He really is. He's into it, and he's played well, and he's making a run at this thing.
Look at these results. People are making thousands every month betting on sports completely risk-free. The secret? They're using OddsJam. OddsJam just isn't another sports betting app. It's turning the entire system in your favor. Here's how. OddsJam uses a strategy called arbitrage, finding odds discrepancies across the sports books. You bet both sides, and no matter the outcome, you will profit. Here's an example. If you bet $500 on Boise State to win on FanDuel and $335 on their opponent San Francisco on DraftKings, you're guaranteed to make $50 win or lose. It's that simple. With the OddsJam mobile app, you'll get real-time alerts on these opportunities every day. People are making thousands of dollars every month, and to get you started, use code FLOCK for 35% off and a 7-day free trial. I guarantee you'll profit during the trial, and if you don't, cancel with one click, no questions asked. Don't leave money on the table. Go to oddsjam.com, use code FLOCK, and start making money the smart way. Jumping into some of the other injury updates that aren't as serious, John Harbaugh said that all of these guys would play week 1, so no one's dealing with anything serious. I've been seeing some concern about Jaire Alexander. He hasn't practiced since August 9th.
DB room right now is dealing with nothing serious in terms of season issues or even for the opener. But he had something, just to kind of take care of that knee. You do some things to kind of help it from a health standpoint. It's something he's been dealing with for a few years now, so it's not anything we didn't expect probably that might have been something to help. But you got to take a couple of days after you do that before you can practice. And same thing with D Hop. He's an older guy working on his knee a little bit, so things like that.
I'm not concerned about Jaire Alexander at all right now. Now, if he's missing multiple games in the regular season every couple weeks, then my concern level will definitely raise quite a bit. But this is training camp, man, and he's a veteran star cornerback who has had a ton of success in this league and is coming off a very serious knee injury. So there's going to be some swelling, there's going to be some draining, and Harbaugh said that takes a couple days to heal after little procedures like that are done. DeAndre Hopkins is dealing with the exact same thing. And Harbaugh did confirm that Jalen Armour-Davis is not hurt. He's just sick right now. He's been wearing a mask, so that's why he didn't play much in the preseason game. He got very limited snaps and then got pulled and then wasn't at practice today, but he's not injured. So there's a lot of guys out right now. I've already seen a lot of fans overreacting that we're dealing with a lot of stuff. This is how it goes in training camp, especially with some vets. They're going to slow roll them. Jaire Alexander, DeAndre Hopkins do not need to play on Saturday. They have weeks until they need to play. So this is not abnormal at all to have a bunch of guys out. Is there some concern? I mean, maybe 2% for me. I'm not even concerned in the slightest. If we get to the regular season and both of them can't stay healthy, then yeah, we got something different to talk about. In some more positive news, we did have Keaton Mitchell return to practice today. Kyle Hamilton also returned to practice today, so that was amazing to see. They didn't have a full practice. I think they both went in early, but they're back out there. They're also kind of being load managed. You know, these are guys that are going to be there on week 1. Nobody's dealing with anything serious out of that group. Really good to see Keaton Mitchell and Kyle Hamilton back today, though. John Harbaugh and Randy Brown also spoke in detail about Tyler Loop, and John Harbaugh said that he decided that Tyler Loop was the starter in the press conference. Not that there was another decision to make. I mean, it was obvious, but he did decide in the press conference. And then we heard from Randy Brown, and he was talking about what he's looking for in a kicker, and I thought it was really interesting that he said this weekend in Dallas was a layup, but they were looking for a kicker who can kick in Baltimore. And out of all the kickers that he studied in this draft and evaluated, only 2 he thought could kick outdoors, and Tyler Loop was one of those.
You know, you're not going to have layups. You're not going to have games like this. So you've got to find who can hit a ball that can play out here. And that was the whole thing about what we did with Tyler, because, you know, I've heard and read some of the things that you guys have put out there, but it's a totally different football, guys. The NFL ball and the ball they use in college are 2 different footballs. So if you have a totally different football, that means you have a totally different sweet spot. That means you have a totally different swing plane. That means you have a totally different plan. So all of that goes into that type of ball. So what did I do, Jaire? I had to find who could actually kick a ball the way that we need it kicked. And what happens is there's not a lot. Now, I'd say easily there's got to be probably 5-6 guys that came out of this class that could kick, but I think only about 2 of them could kick outdoors.
In some other news that's not directly Ravens news, but kind of Ravens news, Joe Flacco was named the starter for the Cleveland Browns, which is just wild, man. It feels like a lifetime ago. I know it was 8 years, but it feels like a lifetime ago that Flacco was the quarterback for the Ravens. And now he's still starting in the NFL. I know it wasn't consecutive, but still, man, shout out to Joe Flacco. That is not easy to still be starting in the NFL, especially at quarterback, over 40 years old. You know, shout out to Joe Flacco, man. He's still out there doing it. And week 2, he comes back to Baltimore for a homecoming. So that will be pretty cool, man. It'll be a cool story. I think the fans will embrace Flacco. Nobody really hates Flacco. You know, we got Lamar right after, so everyone's happy. And we enjoyed the time that Flacco had. I know there were some turbulence in there. There were some struggle years, but overall, Flacco brought us a Super Bowl, got a Super Bowl MVP, even though Jacoby could have got that one. But either way, Flacco did some amazing things with the Ravens. He definitely did lead us to a Super Bowl, man. That playoff run was ridiculous. 11 touchdowns, no picks, and beat the top teams, you know, Colts, Broncos, Patriots on the road, Manning, Brady. I mean, it's a hell of a story, man. Flacco had some great years here. Fan base loves him, and can't wait to see him in week 2. That's pretty much it from today. Just wanted to come on here and go through all the updates. We got a ton of injury updates today, so I wanted to clarify what's going on and my thoughts on the entire situation. But let me know what you guys are thinking. Appreciate you guys, as always, for tuning in to another episode of the Flock Rundown. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll let the greatest linebacker in the history of the game take us out.
Ravens Flock. The Flock Rundown is the place to be. My man Ryan has been a lifelong Ravens fan since he was born. The Flock Rundown. Nothing gets better than waking up and wondering how high we can fly. Tune in.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.